Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. This is going to be, if it's going to be the best or the worst segment of the year. I'm not sure. I'm aiming for the best here because it is baseball season. It's taken a long time to wrangle this guy onto the program because I think he's like afraid that I've been like working on this the way Oscar Madison worked on Howard Cosell with The Odd Couple back in the 70s. But Mark Miller is a local attorney, as they say, in Essex with Blondell Miller Schuler. They are our sponsors, our friends. You can find them at damngoodlawyer.com. And look, man, I can promote all the East Side stuff that I do, whether it's Costas or Pizza John's. Heck, there's 15 Wise Markets now over in the East Side. But, our friendship goes back, and Todd comes on all the time, and I always have a go at you to say, like, well, one day Mark will come on. And finally, the thing that I get you on, it's not auto accidents or personal injury or workman's comp or even some old picture. It's baseball cards. You said, man, when you're ready to talk about baseball and baseball cards, I'll come on. So there's been a lot of baseball cards in my life the last couple of months, Mark. I got to be honest. Since you mentioned it to me, people keep bringing it up. So I'm glad you're on. I'm glad it's baseball season. I'm glad you're doing well. How are you, bud?
I'm good. I think the reason you're hearing it so frequently right now is the market, like on eBay and other auction sites, is just, it's through the roof. The pandemic, the lack of spending money perhaps on tickets for things has led to an incredible increase in the value of cards, even cards that you and I would have collected back like in the 80s, which up till maybe about 2 years ago didn't have a lot of value. So it's really, it's pretty incredible to see what's happened.
Well, I'll say this on the baseball card thing because I have a deep, rich history. Do you remember anything about my baseball carddom as a kid?
I do. I remember you having cards from the 50s and me being jealous.
Really? So did you collect cards? Like
I
in
did.
the neighborhood, Mike Tanner, had the baseball card outlet forever and ever.
Mhm.
I collected cards. I probably had more than anybody knew, like in the neighborhoods, other than dealers themselves. But I don't. Danny Wiseman had cards. Doug Bennett had cards. I'm just thinking about people. Juki, basketball player from Essex, you're part of town. He had cards, but like.
I got a name. I got a name for you.
Go ahead.
Gary Iwanowski had cards that I was jealous of too.
Does
So
Gary still have them?
maybe I haven't talked to
Gary
him
and I are
yet.
Facebook friends, man. Gary's had a battle, so I love Gary. Gary and I do a lot of music stuff. So I love baseball cards. And I guess the story will come full circle because it'll involve my son. And it'll involve like the sort of serendipity, me booking you on a weekend in April, that my son literally sent me a picture an hour and a half ago. He sent me a text. I'm going to pull it up and I'll let you look at it. I'm going to show the front of it and the back of it because I was kind of blown away that like he literally, my parents have lived in Dundalk. They bought their house in 1953. And I want to share this with you. My son found literally yesterday in the walls, he's taken the walls apart at his place. He found he didn't know it was a 1955 Topps, but I did.
Yeah,
Can you see that? That's a Frank Sullivan. Maybe I can even flip it. I think I can flip it. Can you? Did that work?
it does. I can
That's a
see it
55
perfectly.
Frank Sullivan that my son found in the wall, Mark, of the house this week. And
That's
he sent me
crazy.
a picture of it. And I said, why couldn't it have been an Aaron or a Clemente, But I actually had the Clemente at one point. I had a really dog-eared 54 Aaron, and I had a 55 Clemente, and I had a 55 Duke Snyder. When those cards mint were worth like $30. I mean, I'm talking 1981 or 82, right? So 79, 80, 81, 82, collected a lot of baseball cards. You know whose name came up recently? And maybe you'll remember this. Did you ever baseball card shop in Highlandtown in the 80s, Mark, when you were a kid?
I never went to that one. I went to the one over by the in Merritt Park Shopping Center. It was a bookstore and a baseball
What,
card
it had a
shop in
funny
one.
name, Mindbridge Books.
You got it.
Mindbridge. There was a guy he had cards. They weren't on the bus line. So like getting over there, and that involved, don't tell Moeller, all right, but you had to go to the library to get there. And why would I want to go to the North Point Library? But I took the bus to Highlandtown and we shopped at Epstein's. And I talk about Stella's and Jaeger's Music and all those places. But there was a place called Paper Doll that was 2 doors up from Epstein's. Just on the same block where G&A hot dogs. And hi, Andy. I have chili and cheese on mine. And his store had, it had Penthouse and Playboy in the back, and whatever. It probably had. I don't think it had bongs, but I mean, it had stuff. I mean, that was more Doc Hollywood and more like Firefly, but
Right.
he had collectible stuff, posters, rock and roll stuff, Kiss posters on the wall, that kind of stuff in 78, 79, 80, 81. And here's the Dundalk connection. The guy who owns it, John Allen, our dear friend, Child's Play, it's Trump City Devils. John's family, that was his family that had Paper Doll. John and I went out for a beer, running around Fells Point with mask on a couple weeks ago. And we actually talked about it. And so, since you brought up baseball cards, all that comes into my life are baseball cards lately. So, tell me what the audience would want to know. Like, you told me something about the 75 George Brett, which was not a hard card, but it had sort of a weird blue and purple border. The 75s had those. And you threw some number at me, and I'm like, Mark, I had 4 sheets of those. I probably had 35 of those. I probably had 10 of them in mint condition. I mean, I cared about the condition too. We didn't stick them in the bike spokes in 1979, but I had a lot of 70s cards. Not 80s so much, once Donruss and all that, but like in the 70s, that was sort of my sweet spot. And when I hear about that sort of stuff, I'm like, oh my God, you got it. How much is the Cal Ripken rookie card now?
So the Cal card, there's 2 rookie cards for Cal. There's the card where he's on there with actually
The
brought
two
it.
panel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's the 3. He's on there with 3 players. He's on there with, or him included. It's Bob Bonner and Jeff Snyder are the other 2.
I knew Bonner was one of them. Yeah.
And so I'm going to hold it up to the camera. It may not work, but
No. Yeah, I see it perfectly. Yeah, it's great.
So this is one that's, and rookie cards and cards that are in great condition are really the 2 big selling points. So this one's in a Gem Mint 10 graded by a company called PSA that does
Now,
the
what
grading.
does gem mint mean? It means it's never been touched by a human.
Pretty much. I mean, even ones that when you look at them under like a 10 loop mic or a 10 loop magnifier, they seem perfect, and you send them in, you might get an 8 or a 9. So to come with a 10 it's a bit of a rarity, but there are still over 1,000 of these that have been graded as 10.
You know what when I sat with you, I was in the position. I told you I had all this stuff I was trying to get rid of, rock and roll stuff. It's now in the auction. I don't have the magazine here. Next time you talk, I can get the magazine in 30 seconds. I was going to hold it up for people, but I put my stuff in, and I had no idea they were literally going to rate the quality of the Eddie Van Halen autograph. Not just that it was an Eddie Van Halen autograph, the fact that it's the quality. And some of my stuff's, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I didn't realize they put a loop down on a Billy Joel, autograph. And it literally is artwork now, right? All of this stuff is.
Pretty much. And you were smart back in the day. You were one of the people that knew to use a Sharpie with the metallic, like the metallic silver Sharpie as an autograph pen. I mean, I remember.
Why is that smart? Is that like?
Well, it just presents better. It's a lot of it's eye appeal. So whether it's a black Sharpie or a blue Sharpie or a metallic Sharpie, it's like, especially for an autograph, it's how
It's what makes it art.
What makes it art. And so you were ahead of the curve way back in the 80s when you were running around with these rock stars.
But I never, you know what's interesting? I lived on Kane Street. You know that. We threw some parties there, and I had stuff up. Everything I put on the wall is a little bit more damaged because it was on the wall, right?
Right.
So, because the glass chain, what do you know? I mean, I didn't do this to sell it. I did it to present it. I did it thinking one day I'd have a bar or a club basement big enough. Then I got a club basement big enough, and I decided I didn't want anybody in it. And I have had that stuff in a box since I left Kane Street. I mean, it's never been on a wall at the radio station. I mean, the stuff on the wall at the radio station, I got a lot of that from Sports Legends, and I gave it to Robbie's First Base. Anybody wants any stuff, because there's a shelf life on how long you want something, right? Like you just held up that Cal Ripken card. It's like, all right, You're going to die. You're going to get married. You're going to leave it to your kids. You're going to cash it in for what is it worth? What is that
So
particular Cal Ripken? Because I mean, dude, I had 500 of those. I mean, they sold those at Zanino's up the street at, in packs. I mean, it feels like yesterday morning, but that particular card, it was always, Cal Ripken was always sort of a big deal, at least around here. And then 89 happened, right? You kind of knew he was going to go to the Hall of Fame. And then, everything had happened in the 90s. At last I checked that card, it was probably, and I thought like ridiculous, $100 because they were as plentiful as $1 bills. But anyway, so tell me how much that card's worth now.
So this one sold on eBay in an auction, not a buy it now sale, but an auction. So you're
what is
getting
the difference?
Sure. So the auction is it sells for whatever the market says it sells for, meaning like there are people bidding on it, and as long as you have two people involved in the bidding, it's going to go up. So I think it's the perfect marketplace in a way because it draws in the largest audience. To really get a good picture of what the market is, you want to have as many buyers in the room as you can.
It's a legitimate stock, is what you're saying.
Correct. And then of course there are the buy it now sales where you just list it for a certain price, and sometimes it sells that way too. But there was an auction sale of a Gem Mint 10 Ripken, the 82, the regular set, because I'll show you in a second the traded set. It sold for like 1,800 and change, and it's probably 3 years ago or 2 years ago you could have bought it for maybe 300 or 400. So it's 6 times the value of what it was just a
so I
couple years
wasn't
ago.
wrong when I said 100. I'm not
No.
that felt like a normal number, and I felt like by now it's probably 300. That's literally what I thought before I ran into you. By the way, a little piece for you. I had Pete Williams on again. Since the time I brought you Pizza John's and put my feet up on your desk for half an hour, and you mentioned baseball cards to me, it has come into my life every couple 3 days. I guess maybe baseball season too, and maybe some of the people that I've been around. But Pete Williams was a dear buddy of mine back in the day that covered baseball for the USA Baseball Weekly. Wrote a book called Card Sharks, maybe a decade and a half ago. Turn of the century book. I remember the Beckett guides. Does that mean anything to you from back in the 80s?
Oh, sure. I think it started coming out in the late 70s. And
1979, I had the first one. It was called Sport Americana, James Beckett. He was actually local, Dr. Beckett, right? And that was sort of the beginning of setting prices. I mean, my dad took me to a baseball card collector's event trying to think of the name of the town. It was on the DC Beltway, sort of near Kensington, but not there. But it was like at a Holiday Inn on a Sunday afternoon. And that's when I got the Willie Mays card and the Hank Aaron. You had to go special places in 1980, 81, 82 to find these things. But Jay Finglass had, he had events at the Holiday Inn, Cromwell Bridge, right underneath my radio station. And I would pay $50 to set up my table back in 81.
oh yeah.
I mean, I did all of that stuff.
Yep.
And so I'm very familiar, though. My son finds a Topps card in the wall that it's a 55 Topps. How much is that dog-eared old? I mean, is there value, not Cal Ripken, not mint, not, desired, but like, I guess the old cigarette cards. I see those in the Hunt auction books, and I used to see packs of those back in the day too. Who the hell would want to collect a baseball card of a guy you never heard of? Pie Trainer, Ty Cobb, but when I see all of this, I'm thinking, where's the value of are all the boats rising, or is it just the cream of the cream?
It's the cream of the cream mainly. But for instance, you brought up the 55 Clemente. So that Frank Sullivan looks like it's been through the washing machine a couple times.
It was in a wall for 60 years. He found it in the wall, dude.
I hear you. It's probably worth $1. But if you found if you found the Clemente, a Clemente in that same condition, it's going to grade as a 1, which is the lowest grade that a card gets. But
a 1 is
on a scale of 1 to 10, it's considered poor to fair.
Poor. How poor is poor?
I mean, it could be
this card. I want to see how bad this card. Yeah, I guess if you're grading it as art, it's it's poor, but it could be a lot worse.
I think they call it poor to fair. I had a Hank Aaron rookie for a bit that was a poor to fair, and it had just tons of creases, wrinkles in it. Looked like it had been crumpled up and straightened back out.
I had a 54 like that. It had missing corners. I mean, it had a hole in it. Yeah, like that.
But even that, for instance, that Hank Aaron now in a one would probably sell for $1,500 if it was
What?
great. Yeah, yeah, and that's
Oh, dude, don't tell me. Tell me about the 55 Clemente because I had a really nice one. Like it wasn't probably like a mint, but it probably would, in the day 7-8. What's a 55 Clemente worth?
in a
I
in
mean,
a
I know
set.
what that looks like because the Bob Clemente came after and all that stuff. And Lord, they didn't call it racism back then, but that's what we call it now. But yes, Bobby.
So say you had it in an eight, tens of thousands of dollars for that Clemente eight, 20, 30, 40,000. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That'll wreck my day.
That's
What else will wreck my day? Like, I'll give you something that'll wreck your day. Ready? I gave my Heartland statue, my Aparicio. I had a Yogi Berra too. The
Mhm.
Aparicio's in really good shape. It didn't have the toe plate, but it's beautiful. I mean, beautiful. No missing, anything. And a guy who knew me came upon it. It was worth $100. I think I gave him $500 in dinner cards for. I did something nice for him back in the '90s, and I had it and it used to sit behind me on the set. I was always afraid of it falling over and smashing, and then it wouldn't be worth anything. And then you look it up and you're like, all right, maybe somebody would give me $300 for it, but really, if I needed to get rid of it tomorrow, what would I get $100? Because like, how popular is it? Who wants it? Where do they want to display it? They're not buying it for $100 to put it in a box to put it. Maybe they are if they're collecting it, but they're cards for that. I really do. And I ask Robbie and Robbie Jr. all the time, like, where's the market? Like, I look over your shoulder, dude, and I see the most awesome Natty Bo poster. You're messing with Schuler's office. You guys are messing with me because that
I,
doesn't even
I
look like his
am.
real office anymore. But like something like that is like art to me, And I don't know what it's worth or what Robbie would sell it for, but it's from my childhood. It's been on bars like Nacho Mamas and whatever. But it's that kind of stuff that I guess that means something to somebody. But all the Aparicio cards, I spent my childhood collecting them all, right? Because family this. I had every coin, every Kellogg, every. He wasn't on an SK card, but they came up this week because we were talking about the 54 and 55 SK
Yep.
Baloney cards. Um, I had every Aparicio. I can't find them, Mark. I put them in an envelope. They were all autographed by Louis. Louis literally touched every single one of them from 1956, his rookie card in the White Sox, the high number 61 All-Star card, all of that, all autographed. I had them all in a folder. I can't even find them. I don't know where they are. What's an Aparicio autograph card in good shape worth?
So you make a good point about the autographs being graded too. So for instance, you talk about the 56 card, which is rookie card. Um, if you would send it into PSA, which is the premier grading company, you would get a grade both for the card and the autograph. And if it graded like an 8 or a 9, just the card itself sells for a couple grand. I have no idea if you added in the autograph, let's say it was an 8 or 9 autograph on top of it, you'll see the two grades on there. I'm sure it would go in excess of the couple grand that it would be worth.
You're telling me I need to find that.
Yeah, and it's a good lesson for everybody right now. Now is the time to start looking through your attic, through your basement, through your your tubs of things that you haven't looked at. You think might be Christmas decorations, but might be cards. You dig in there and you find, and it's not even, it's going to be tough. I mean, you were into it, so you have stuff from the 50s, but other people who are our age or maybe even a little younger would have stuff from the 80s that are. I'm going to hold up this other Cal card because
Well,
it's
the Ricky Henderson card was always like the one everybody wanted. The Ricky Henderson rookie. I'm trying to think, even like McGuire back in the day, I guess. I'm just
the,
thinking out loud of things that
the Henderson
none of
rookie.
those cards, I don't know what they look like. Like the cards of the 80s, after 81, 82, I discovered girls and like working at the paper. And you've been in my life all these years, you know that. I don't think I touched a baseball card after 1982 or 83. Like I would never be able to. Well, I did because when I did radio back in the 90s, Chris Hoyles or Mike Messina or Ben McDonald, cards would come and the players would sign them and I'd see them, but
Well,
I don't.
see if you recognize this one. This
Go
is
ahead.
this is from an 82. In 82, they came out with the traded set. So like if you change teams mid-season, at the end of the year, Topps came out with I think it was a 132 card set that was players transitioning, either the rookies that hadn't had a card in the original set and were coming out that year, or like Cal's situation, he was a big enough star where they gave him his own card. And so this is
I
this is
remember
the
that card.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I do remember that card. I had that card on an uncut sheet on my wall in my bedroom.
it's
That was that
prob
82. That's 82 tops, right?
that's
I had an
probably
82 tops uncut sheet.
it's probably the entire traded set because it was a mini set, 100 and some cards. It was probably all on one sheet, and you probably had the whole set on that one sheet.
11
A-
times 12, 132. Right. Got it. Yeah.
And so this is one in a 9, but in a 10 right now it's selling for $8,000 or $9,000. So you can imagine people.
What I should have done is taken that damn thing in my house with my dad and just put it in a warehouse somewhere and forgotten about it. Instead, it took up space. Same stuff my stuff's doing right now. It's just sort of like I'm done with it. I'm 52. I've been carrying this stuff. I want to get rid of it. With the baseball cards and the magazines, I got rid of a lot of that stuff 20, 30 years ago. Swish Morrison, I just got rid of it all because it took up space. The stuff I kept is the most worthless stuff, the ticket stubs, because they didn't take up a lot of space. I have every ticket stub. I think the thing that even brought the conversation on with you, because it brought the conversation on the air, was that when Hank Aaron died, my dad took me to see Hank Aaron, and I had a ticket stub that I had kept since 1976. You mentioned that thing over your shoulder being a 76.
Yep.
Hank, my dad that week when Hank was coming in, because I remember the Hank home run at Atlanta. I watched that live for sure. I was 5. I remember it vividly. But 2 years later, Hank was coming in as a Brewer, and my dad said, We'll go on Friday. They're playing a twilight doubleheader. He'll play one of the games. That way we'll see him play. If you go Saturday or Sunday, he might play, might not play, might pinch hit. You have to stay late. So we went on that Friday, and then I found the box score, Mark. He singled and drove in a run. I remember it. I remember sitting in the upper deck where I was when he hit it. I remember a lot about that. But here's the wacky part. I went to look for the ticket stub, and I found it. And I thought, this is the stub. This is the stub. And when I looked up the date, they played the Indians that night. So I've kept that ticket stub for 45 years, and it was the wrong stub. It didn't have it had a date on it, but not a team. It didn't have a Brewer logo and little ball and mitt. But Mark Miller is here. Mark has been my friend since our childhood, since when I collected baseball cards. He is can I call you a sports collector? Is that fair to say? You only collect baseball cards, you collect other stuff.
Baseball, football, basketball. The 70s basketball cards are just they've accelerated in value more than anything,
I
even
had that
baseball.
little panel card with, was it Magic?
Magic Larry and Dr. J were on an 80, 81.
I
Um,
had that card.
that's selling a 9 in that card will get you 40 grand right now. It's painful. A lot of people broke the card into thirds. They tore along the perforations. But it's got to be all together, and it's got to be centered, and it's got to be 4 mint corners. And the company that grades the cards, they give extra scrutiny to the cards that are the high dollar cards, right? So I sent in an 80 Ricky Henderson. I thought was for sure a 9. It came back an 8, and I know why, which is when they look at them, if I had sent in a Sixto Lescano card from 1980, it would have probably gotten a 9. But they recognize that I'm fishing for value when I'm sending in the Ricky Henderson, so they're tough. They're extra
Sixto
tough on it.
Lescano was in the order that night, by the way, and that's probably when I began my Sixto Lescano journey with him and his hair and the Phillies jersey. Mark is an attorney. Damngoodlawyer.com is the way to find them. Blondell Miller Schuler. I always threatened to bring you on, and I think you thought I was going to go find the yearbooks and put up funny pictures. I didn't even put that much effort into it because I figured the fact that my kid found a 1955 Frankie Sullivan in the wall and texted to me at 10:04 this morning, and did not know you were coming on to talk baseball cards with me is really, really freaky deaky. So the whole baseball card thing and where we are with sports and with baseball, you still love baseball? I mean, I don't remember you loving baseball as much as you love like basketball, Like I love sports more than you did. You were going to do something important, like be a lawyer or something.
I hear you, but I was such a big Orioles fan, and the fact that they haven't been good for years, and with a few exceptions, year to year they've had a few surprises, but I was a huge fan, and I'll tell a quick story about you from 1983. We used to ride the bus together to Dundalk. So it would have been the beginning of our junior year when they were in the World Series, right? When the series against the Phillies. So I wanted a program. I didn't have tickets, you did, but you had tickets in Philly, or I think you had tickets in Philly because
Well, that
somehow.
story was told recently. Miss Monday, Susan Monday, drove game 4, which was Saturday. Game 3 was the night of our Sadie Hawkins dance. And it was my birthday. It was the night Palmer pitch. I did not go to the game 3. I went to the dance at Dundalk High. And that was the night Benny Ayala had the big hit. So I went to 1, 2, 4, and 5. Game 4, I had 4 tickets. Kenny Andrews, Kevin Eck, myself, and Sue Monday went to game 4 together. And then game 5, my dad got 6 tickets. We had 2 carloads for
That's awesome.
game 5, and we went up Mr. Yanuzzi, who was my dad's baseball coach on my dad managed baseball teams. He was the baseball coach. So like, man, I remember that like yesterday though. Like that whole everything about that weekend special to me, man.
So you did me a favor though. You brought me back a World Series program from Philadelphia. So I have the World Series program from the '83 series, but it has the Philadelphia Phillies insert, not the Orioles insert in the inside of it. So
More rare or less rare? I'd probably less rare. They play 3 games in Philly and only 2 here, huh?
I'm not sure. It's more of that one's more sentimental in value than it is.
I get sentimental when I'm in the parking lot where the Spectrum used to be, because that's where we parked. And my dad like was trying to fight everybody in Philly on the way out of the stadium. You know, my dad was 65 years old then, so had to sort of corral my dad after winning Game 5. I had a picture at the radio station that means a lot to me because it's where my father and I sat. Like our seats for game 5 were up in the upper corner up by the Liberty Bell, but by the 9th inning, everybody had left. They were going to get swept out. And my dad and I watched the final pitch from the 500 level, which is the lower part of the upper deck. It's almost like a terrace, right like on the on deck circle. And there was a picture that Sports Legends had, giant picture. And it was the moment like McGregor and Dempsey and Dower and Ripken sort of piling on, but it was taken from the angle. It must have been in the camera well in front of where we were, whoever took the picture. And that picture is like the snapshot of exactly where I was when that moment happened. So I always had that up on the wall too, but it's amazing all these years later, like Wild Bill Hagee, and I had a Jim Palmer pancake thing up on the wall, that the artwork and the baseball cards and newspapers and all of that stuff that Robbie has and that the internet you can find. You can find any Clippers or Skipjacks thing you want, right? I mean, like that sort of stuff's out there. People don't throw that stuff away. They wind up keeping it in a bag in the basement like I have for 30 years.
and exactly, and I would encourage people to go look in there and see what they got.
And whether Mark wants to invest in it or not.
Right, right. Get it out there on the market. Make yourself money.
What's the stuff that you have that does all of it mean a little something to you in an old school when you buy something or you're thinking, well, that's speculative. I wasn't really a Clemente fan. I was more of a Duke Sniper. I didn't have the Clemente card because I love Clemente that at that time in my life. I think I had it thinking it was, I was 12 years old and I looked at the value of cards then too and said, that's more valuable than that. I mean, so what if I don't like Reggie Jackson? The card's worth, the 69 Jackson's a good card, How do you, at this point, when you're a big boy and have big boy cards, I don't know. I mean, what could make you part with that Ripken at this? You know what I mean? Like, at what point do you sell it?
Sure. So, a couple things. One, the grading company also has a registry, so you can compete with other people essentially to build the best set of a particular player. In my case, I've got the number 3 set for the Brooks Robinson master set. So every card of any company, every coin, everything, every bazooka card that you can imagine, every postcard that you can imagine is part of this set registry. And so for me, it's now a matter of, like you say, sentimental or money. It's a lot of sentimental. So I'm trying to complete my Brooks Robinson master set. And so,
what are you missing? So, I mean, Brooks came up 57. I had a 57 Brooks. It was off center. That's why I had it. It was a little dog-eared off center. I don't know if it would be called poor. You know what I mean? I don't know what makes something poor. If it's off center, what does that do to it? I don't know. But I did have a weird one. And there were a lot of weird cut cards back in the 50s, 60s. I mean, they weren't cut as well as they were in the 80s.
right. And so that's a big problem too. So for instance, what you talk about the Brooks card, I have it in an 8, but part of the 8 grade is the centering. So if it's off center, it's never going to get an 8. It might get an 8, but it will have a qualifier, the qualifier being off center. So it diminishes the value pretty significantly, as opposed to having a perfectly centered card with 4 perfect corners and great. They have something called, it's how bright the photo is, how white the borders are. All those things sort of go into the formula that they use to come up with the grade on the thing.
So if I had a Pete Rose 63, hypothetically, it's not like it really happened or anything. It happened. Pete Rose off center. What's Pete's stuff going for? Because he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Remarkable. But yeah, still thousands of dollars for the Pete Rose rookie. There are a lot of, that's one that you would want to get graded even if it was in poor condition, because they could authenticate it, versus back in the 80s, even when that was one of the first cards that was counterfeited.
It was knocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mark Miller's an attorney. I swore he wouldn't talk too much about this, but people get in accidents, bad shiz happens, and insurance companies, as has been told by many people in your industry, they're not your friend, right? I mean, like literally, let's just call it what it is.
Correct. And I would go even further and say they're not your friend, but they're also your enemy. I hate to say that way, but if
Is there ever a point like you rear end my ass today and it's a little fender bender and my back hurts a little bit, but it's no big deal and it's $1,200 for my fender? Is there ever a point you should just say, all right, just give me the 12? I mean, literally, like to make it go away. When you're in an accident, should you always call a lawyer no matter what? Because like no matter what, you're going to get kind of lowballed on the first offer. Is that rule of thumb? I never thought about it that way, but more recently I do think about it that way.
Sure. So if it's a minor injury and the person maybe got checked out like a patient first, I'll probably tell them, just go ahead and try to resolve it on your own. But if it's something more significant, we'll get involved, because I take every case with the idea that at some point I may have to be in front of a judge or a jury on the case. So my preference would be not to take those cases where somebody goes to patient first and gets checked out and that's it. However,
there's nothing in it for you building a fake case in a court of law, like literally, right?
I hate it. I hate it because it diminishes my credibility. It diminishes other people's credibility. When you have a legitimate case, you've got to distinguish your situation from all these crappy cases that other attorneys have brought, and that's why I just refuse to do it. I just won't.
Yeah, I sat on a jury once in my life. I think I've told you this. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't talk about it much. It happened during a Steelers playoff week. So this is probably like before Jen got cancer, maybe 11, 12, somewhere in there. I mean, I had bus trips. It was like a busiest week ever. And I got called on jury duty and I got pointed at. And I found out later, and I think this is unethical. You can tell me, but I was on the first call for jury. I have no idea whether my Hispanicness, whether they recognize, I have no idea why I was so popular to be on a jury. But they pulled me in, and it was an auto accident case in Annapolis. A woman rear end, had her eye off, rear ended another person. The person it was a 5-year-old case. The person had claimed this, claimed that, claimed this, claimed that, devastated my life. Never really took time off of work. Had been traveling the world. Had been to Spain twice. Had been hanging out in Vegas, like all sorts of stuff. We spent 2 days on this. All of the jurors, we all followed the rules, didn't talk, and that stuff. Got my $10 for my lunch and I picked up some pho. It's back before I could eat with chopsticks. And we walked in and we're like, this is a sham. Like, how did this happen? How did I take 2 days of my life and a weekend not talking to my wife and do all this? Like, we went in, I think we gave her like $1. Like we gave her her medical cost, whatever, the $8,000 or something. She was asking for like $800,000. It was like, it was outrageous. And I thought to myself, man, that was like, and the lawyer presenting the case gave me the willies, everybody it was just sort of like Ted Cruz presenting. And so we did our deal. We walked out, it was snowing outside. And the lawyer from the defense came up to me and started talking to me about my competitor and my radio station. And I'm like, I thought when you're picking juries, you weren't supposed to know who I was, or like, I didn't even know, but I don't know. I had a really bad experience, like because it was just such a it made a mockery of the whole thing. What you just said. It was an embarrassment to everyone, we thought.
Sure. So one of the rules that I try to follow, and one of the sort of mantras of successful personal injury lawyers, is that you want to try your winning cases and settle your losing cases. I hate being in front of a jury on a case that um, doesn't have the merit that would put it in front of a jury. So you're right. You're taking 6 people and you're spending 2 days of their time and their life on something. You want to have something that has merit. So yeah, I never want to be in the courtroom with a crappy case. It sucks. But the cases that are important and do have merit, those are the ones I want to try, and those are the ones that I want to get even people like you on my jury who can appreciate the fact that someone's life's been altered, um, and award money. It's a tough thing to ask. It's a tough thing to go in front of a jury and ask for money. And sometimes I
So
get
you're saying the lawyer figured out who I was and know I wasn't going to stand for any shit, and I was going to see it. I mean, I don't literally. I just thought it was kind of tacky to be really. I don't even remember who the lawyer was. I don't even want to remember who the lawyer was. I just wanted to get out of there and get to Pittsburgh, and I think it was one of the years we lost.
I'm
There were a
amazed
few
by
of those.
I'm amazed by 2 things. We talked about this before. Your memory. There was a 60-minute special with Mary Lou Henner where she can remember, like you give her a date 10 years ago and she can remember what she ate for breakfast that day. You're like that. That's a little
My wife
scary.
says that all the time about me. She compares me to Mary Lou Henner. Literally.
Uh,
I don't think I'm that gifted. I mean, like I remember things, but I'm not like I don't remember everything like that. The things I remember, but I don't know. I remember you, Mark Miller. I remember you dribbling basketballs in my Aunt Jane's house in San Diego and San Francisco. At some point, I will break out the pictures. I'm sure we have some somewhere, but
really?
I'm not going to do that to you this time. At least Mark Miller is here. Tell everybody what you do. Give your elevator speech because Todd does a lot of elevator speaking, and Todd always speaks on your behalf as to if you get in a car accident and you're getting screwed, you want Mark Miller in a courtroom for you. That's what he says about you.
Yeah, I hate doing sales. That's maybe why I have Todd do it. I'm not, even when I have clients come in, I
Why
don't
do
do.
you do what you do? I mean, I've known you my whole. I've never asked you over a beer. Like, I I guess I sort of knew you wanted to be a lawyer. I never knew why. And then you went to work for this guy in Essex and you never stopped. And you and I would get together during Life's Highway, probably around basketball, because that was our sort of mutual thing. But like, I never asked you why you wanted to be a lawyer. Is this what you always wanted to do?
I'd like to argue all my life probably. That's part of it, but it's a lot of the competitiveness. We don't get paid unless we succeed.
Like
And
a
so,
golf?
yeah. So for instance, the attorney who tried that case that you were referencing and got $8,000 verdict or whatever the medical bills were, that's a loss. It's a losing proposition for him. It's a
He had a
losing
bad
proposition.
day. Yeah, he had a bad case.
Right. Um, but yeah, as I said, I don't do sales. I do tell people I've been here it's my 28th year here. So it's my first job out of law school, and uh, you know,
Been there longer than the 97 Ravens. I'm looking I'm looking over your shoulder.
and so I've just tried a lot of cases, and that's I guess how I know what I'm doing. I've been to court so much. And
10,000 hours. I've been reading Malcolm Gladwell. I was doing the
I've
tipping point. I'm working on my Paul Revere connector and Maven and salesman, as well. Damn good lawyer. I'm not going to make Mark stay any longer and talk about all his trials and tribulations. What other cards do you have any other show and tell? Because I mean, I showed you a 55 Frankie Sullivan that's been in a wall that my son fished out this week. What else you got there for me?
brought one last one, and I know you're going to like it
Don't make
because
it a 75, Brett. Please
no,
don't
no,
make it a
no,
70.
no, no. It's a. I went a little off. I think his birthday was recently, but that is a
Oh, there you go.
1979 Earl Campbell in a 9, and it's probably selling for $800 or $900 right now. Uh, but I know you were a huge Oilers fan, and I know you were a huge Earl Campbell fan.
I have all my old Oilers stuff. Like I have hats, shirts. I don't know what I mean, somebody in Houston, when I'm in Houston and I go to like secondhand stores, they have tons of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like literally, like Maybe not as much like Colts would be here a little bit, same way. It's sort of around a little bit, but anything Oilers is still, and the Oilers are the best because they never, they drove it to the end of the road in Tennessee and killed it, right?
Right.
Like it would be like what Colts stuff was if Indianapolis took on a green racing wheel or something back in the day. Yeah, we probably would have been the Colts again, though. I guess. I hope. Do you watch football? I mean, are you watching the Orioles, or you just collecting old stuff at this point?
I haven't watched a baseball game this year, sadly. So
I I've been all over that. I mean, when Schuler and I get together, we talk about stuff like that, and with Dennis, and I sort of went nuts this week. Moeller and I always fight because he's just like in the family. It's absurd when he and I get together. He doesn't even make sense about the business of it. I keep saying to myself, how can they not hire someone like me to find someone like you to want to come back to games? You're in Essex. I live 2 blocks away. We're old chums. We don't golf together. We don't chase girls together. We don't go to rock concerts together. Like the one thing we don't drink beer all night, like we used to. Like the one thing you and I would get together and do out of our friendship would be like, oh, I get to hang out with Mark at a ball game 4 nights this year. We'll pick a couple nights. If you got wife, kids, they all like it. That's what we thought this part of our life was going to be, right? Like I think all of us believe when the stadium was built here that we would be utilizing it and happily and turning over our credit cards and buying Oriole stuff and swag. And instead, you're like got old pictures of Brooks Robinson under glass that have value. You know what I mean? And that feels better to you than going, literally, right?
it does. I probably last time I went to multiple games in a year was in the 90s when I lived in Federal Hill. But it was like where you are geographically, it was a great walk to go from Federal Hill over to the game. And we had bleacher seats, which weren't great seats, but it was a
It's for
social.
everybody. You could
It's
take a date. You could take your parents. You could take your friends.
Yep.
Like anybody would want to go to a ball game now. Like I don't know, dude. I love you. I mean, I like as my friend, my sponsor, my friend. But if we're gonna get together, you and me, we're probably not gonna do this. Yeah, I mean, literally, maybe at a bar over a beer when things open up, or a Pizza John's, and maybe it'll be on. But we're not gonna center our evening, even you and me, around this, right? I mean, and that's shame on them. It's not shame on you and me. That's how I feel about it.
That's how I feel too. I'm not even interested enough to watch right now, unfortunately. And maybe I'll give it a try later in the summer and see how the team is. But it's just a bummer. I do read the paper and follow the team that way. But there's like a streak of 13 or more strikeouts in 4 straight games, which has never been done in history. Just not a fun thing to watch.
Can you get an NRT on that? No, I'm just. That's pretty good. Does that make me cool to reference that? That's what the new kids are doing, right?
Yeah.
So they would issue an NRT of all 52 strikeouts over the last 4 nights and put it on the market and have 100 of them, right? And you would say, "I'll take a flyer on that'll never be done again. I'll buy that," right? Like literally, in the hopes that one day you can sell that video. Is that what these things are? They're like little memes.
Something digital. I don't know, dude. You're asking the wrong guy about that.
I'm asking a guy collecting Brooks Robinson about that. Mills, I love you, man. Take care of yourself. Keep defending the people over there. And I've talked a little bit about it. I talked to Dennis about this, and I've talked to your partner Todd about how crazy people are driving. Like,
Yes.
I don't mean that like an old man. Like I used to get down to South Florida every year in the 90s for the Orioles, in spring training, and I would see people drag racing because the roads are wider, like from South Beach up to Fort Lauderdale. I would see people doing 100 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour on motorcycle, like crazy stuff that I'd never. I see that here now. I see people doing 85 miles an hour on Loch Raven and 695. Like I would just think from a driving standpoint for what you do, telling people to drive safely, that's a public service message, right?
Absolutely. And it's crazy. The roads were vacant for however many months during the pandemic when it was at its height, and people that were driving, I'd see them and they'd be going 100. Well, now they're all these cars back on the road and they're still driving the same way, like the roads are empty. It's pretty crazy. So
it's not the Autobahn, it's the Beltway, people.
that's it.
I loved having you on, and I was going to do something fun. Next time I have you on, I will find some old picture that will embarrass one of us.
Or both of us.
Well, I mean, it's guilt by association. We're stuck with each other now.
All right.
Mark Miller
See you.
joining us here, damngoodlawyer.com, Blondell Miller Schuler. He's the other half of the Todd Schuler. I call you guys Penn and Teller.
Perfect.
We'll see you
See you,
soon.
buddy.
You hear the
Yep.
ads. Find him in Essex. We'll find some Pizza John's pizza for him as well, and the Reggie Jackson poster behind him. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, having some wise conversations around here. All brought to you by friends at Wise Markets. I had Rob Santoni on last week talking about all of those things. We've had right side, left side. We had Michael Steele on last week from Republican National Committee. He's going to run for governor. We've also had Wes Moore on earlier this month. We've been talking a lot right now about springtime. We're going to do some cicada talk later on in the spring. Hopefully get some concerts together as well. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.